Hello and welcome back, and that is right. Today we want to return to the subject of that Jonsbo N3 build with the Erying i9 MoBo build that we did just before Christmas 2023. Right now at the start of 2024 we want to return to this build and perform some pretty dense Plex media server testing. Now for those who aren't aware, this is a $599 build. That includes the Jonsbo if you get it at a decent enough price, but it doesn't include the storage media. And before we go any further, a few disclaimers straight off the bat. We're going to be using the Plex Pass account. On top of that, we have set up Plex on the NVMe storage. If we go here into the mapped drives I've got here, I've mapped it. Plex has been mounted inside the NVMe, but the actual media that we're going to be accessing in today's video is located on the hard drive. On the hard drive array, we've created a simple mirror of a couple of 14 TB drives. They're inside, 10 TB drives, Ultra Stars. I forgot that from the build. And the reason we've done that is we don't want to give any kind of unfair advantage to the performance media, particularly when we start looking at the 8K stuff, to the NVMe's given that extra bit of oomph. Also, we have enabled hardware transcoding, something I'll be digging into in a little bit of detail later on. And finally, there's going to be a lot of preamble on this video for reasons that will become clear with regards to the setup and ticking certain boxes, dotting certain I's, crossing certain T's. So if you just want to get to the results, there is a chapter marker on the bar below that will take you ahead there. But probably the first disclaimer, this voice, I am so fantastically ill at the moment. I'm getting better, but you can probably tell, forget the crazy camera, that will make sense in a moment. But the main reason I sound like this is I got ill over Christmas, and although I'm getting over it, my voice is the last thing to recover, unfortunately. So I'm going to sound like this. So if you tap the mute button, I wouldn't be offended. But second thing I want to highlight, the reason you're seeing me on this rather low-res camera is to do with the fact that we're actually conducting 3 different builds right now here on the background, here on the channel. Not only have we got the Jonsbo build, but if I bring this camera around, you can see quite a lot going on this table next to me here. The Jonsbo is just there in the middle on the right. That's what we're going to be accessing today, but double checking that I haven't accidentally disconnected the camera there. Other builds that are taking place right now in the background, another requested video. Again, I spoke to a couple of users yesterday about this. We were talking a lot more about this. This is the Ustar video we're running at the moment, where we're doing a Proxmox install on this using pfSense, and we're going to be utilizing TrueNAS scale on this system here, and we're just getting that set up for another video coming soon. So unfortunately I'm starting to run out of ports on this for my capture card, hence why we're not using the usual higher end camera. Another video we're working on at the moment is this is a mini PC here, and this mini PC is an i5. It's a dual NVMe. It comes from the system, the company B-Link. So we're getting that set up, and I'll be looking for requests on the installation you might want to see on that, but that will be coming in the next couple of weeks. So ultimately, I think we should get down to business here. So the first thing I should highlight, we sort of erred on it earlier on, to do with hardware transcoding. One of the main reasons a user would opt for this system is because of that CPU. Whether it is that you want to dig in with things like net data, which will really take things down an incredibly kind of thorough, meticulous route, or you want to keep it simple and use rather, easy to read tools, which is what we're going to be utilizing for the Plex performance. The CPU architecture on this, that i9, is just such a beast. It's an i9 14-core processor there that already has quite a powerful GPU on board, integrated with that CPU there, and that is, of course, when it comes to 4K and 8K transcoding, for those that need those files changed with regards to file format, licensing of compression, or that they want to use their iPhone from the other side of the world to watch the latest Avatar, but they don't want to watch it in 4K, that's where this is going to become particularly useful to you there. Now, just to give you an example, if we go into the Plex Media Server here on the right-hand side, I might disable my blurry little camera there. If we outside of that, and we go down to the bottom here, and we go to the transcoder, we've already set that up to make my CPU hurt. Additionally, here at the bottom, as you can see, we have made sure that it is going to use hardware transcoding by default. But just in case you are still concerned about that, what you can do is go into the apps here, go into Plex Media Server, dig in a little deeper there, and you can actually ensure to assign that the CPU that has the integrated graphics for both AMD and Intel have that assigned to this particular container container deployed Plex Media Server. So as you can see, I have allocated one GPU. Now again, it is scalable to different CPUs with different GPUs or even GPU cards, but that is what I'm going for as the baseline here. To put that into perspective, if we head into those details there, and we'll play ourselves something just a little bit heavy. So if we go into the Jonsbo here, we're going to the 4K files here, and we'll go into Cave of Wonders, a very slow playing file there. I may have to mute things for us. Again, it looks like it isn't playing. It is. And if we look on the right-hand side there, we can see direct play. This is being directly played there. Again, so no transcoding is really a factor here. If we open up at the bottom, we can see original playback there as well. Let's zoom in just a little bit there. But what if we do want to use transcoding? Let's convert this file into an HD version of this 4K file. We've got the conversion happening in real time. It's switching there. It's been automatically changed. And on the right hand side, as you can see, now we are transcoding. We're transcoding this file here, and on the right hand side, hardware transcoding is displayed there. So that's good to know that that is coming through. Of course, one of the issues with the file we're watching here is it's so slow paced, it does look like nothing is happening, but it actually is happening if you look down at the timestamp there at the bottom. But I just wanted to use that just as a nice demonstration, just to let you know the hardware transcoding is indeed enabled on this setup that we're going to be running here. Another thing a number of you may wish to highlight as well is that we're using the web browser. Why on earth would we use the web browser? Why are we not using client tools? Why aren't we using mobile phones? Why aren't we using iPads? Why aren't we using tablets and more? I don't know why I waved my phone at the camera when I just realised the camera is turned off. Well, a big part of that is we need to have a neutral controllable setup. Now, down here we have the client tool for Windows. This will allow us to go ahead, let's pop those back on screen. This client tool here allows us an element of control, but unfortunately, the minute we start using the client tool for example, Windows, it's not going to be as relatable as people utilising the client app for, say, an Android phone or an iPhone. So I'm trying to use the web browser because the web browser gives a certain element of configuration that is just not afforded, or at least not as open-ended as it is on the client tools, which are tailored toward those individual OSs a great deal more. But just to put it into perspective, once again, we're going to go ahead and play the roast up file once again, and we're going to convert that file. But as you can see, we're already converting. So we're just going to move that to the right hand side. Once again, and you can see we are converting that file down. Why have we done that? Well, it's because I've ensured that the client app here is actually utilizing a different subnetwork going in, and it's not playing directly. So there is no option to play directly or play native if we chose to. So that'll give us the option for forced transcoding when needed, but I don't think we need to do it. But later on in the video, when we start playing bulk, large quality files, that is where that one is going to come in. Now, I know this has been a heavy disclaimer video, a heavy intro video, but I also think it's worth highlighting while we're going through this, that unlike a lot of my other videos, one of the issues I've encountered in the last few months when playing certain file types is a lot of you have asked for specific multimedia to be utilized, and one of the big problems we're encountering here, like a lot of YouTube channels, is using content that already exists online does tend to result in the video being either demonetized at best, or at worst being taken down completely. So unfortunately, at least for the time being, until we start, myself and Eddie in the background are creating a wide range of files to be used in Plex Media Server testing that are going to be license free. Until that's completed, we can't really use these files, and we're sticking to certain jellyfish files for the testing, and later on the 8K test files will be end this video. Again, the chapters at the bottom should annotate a lot of this if you want to skip ahead to those. But let's start nice and easy, because I think it would be fair to say this particular NAS is going to be able to pretty much knock anything out the park. If we leave the CPU and memory utilization there and start quite big, so rather than play some of the light stuff, I mean, again, if you really must know it, if we try to play this 3 megabits per second H.264 file, I think this could almost play this file with the goddamn NAS turned off. This is such a mainstream 1080p file that if there'd been even a bump on this, I probably would have restarted the server out of sheer bloody mindedness. But, of course, an HEVC file, if we were to try and convert that, had we been using a device that did not support highly efficient video codec, HEVC, otherwise known as H.265, which is a consortium funded compression technique to bring, you know, large-scale cinema movies to the comfort of your sofa. Unfortunately, if you have a device, you know, the PlayStation 5 is another one, or Amazon Fire TV does not natively support this, the result would be that you would have to transcode this file. So let's play that again, but this time force the system to convert that file. This is going to be a native conversion, keeping it at 1080p. So again, CPU utilization is going to be like the minorest jump there, absolutely minor. Again, we can see there using hardware transcoding, not a surprise, and we're playing it through and it's absolutely fine there. Just playing sweet as a nut. But what about if we play this file again, but this time, and we won't pause it, this time I want to really bring it down. We're going to convert it down to 160p. That is an enormous downgrade, but that also requires a significant amount of hardware resources to get the job done. We're just waiting for this now playing tab to catch up with the changes we have applied, and now it has, again, hardware transcoding being utilized, and CPU utilization is absolutely nothing. So it's great stuff there. So rather than go with these middling files at 10 megabits per second, let's ramp things up quite significantly, trying the 100 megabits per second H.264 file here, opening it up, playing in original quality. Again, we're playing it there, no transcoding necessary, and we're seeing it here on the right hand side, the tiniest bump, but overall the file is playing. But I will say down there is a slight bottlenecking happening right now in terms of network bandwidth, not much, but I will see right there that we're going at 111 megabits, but we're still running a 1000 megabits per second, or 1 gigabit Ethernet, so that's not really much of a problem, but the file still played absolutely fine there. Now, in order to cut maybe 5 to 10 minutes off this video, I'll tell you right now, every one of these files down here plays on this system. It plays natively, and although you are going to come into a question later on during your own network bandwidth, particularly with shared users, native playback of these files is fine. But I think a lot of you want to see what simultaneous playback and transcoding is going to be like on this system, and for that we need to switch over to a couple of, again, still accessing it on the same device but on the same local area network, but this time with forced conversions. Now we're going to see a different kettle of fish. So we're going to look at that 120 megabits per second 4K file with transcoding enabled there. You can see there hardware transcoding happening right now. And on top of that, if we scroll down a little bit further, we can see CPU utilization, barely a scratch on the surface. And indeed here we're converting down to a 4K version of the same file. But if we convert down to something more of a pain in the arse, we're going to go down to 480p there. Again, there at the top, the conversion's happening. We've converted it down to standard quality very, very easily there. And the file is played with the CPU barely taking a breath. Now, ramping things up, we're going to use the client app now, and this time we're going to play the 200 megabits per second. As you can see, it's converting it down, and simultaneously we're going to play the exact same file here on Microsoft Edge, still playing that file, still converting that file. And if we look at both versions, both utilizing hardware transcoding there, and CPU utilization once again is barely doing a dang thing. But another thing I want to highlight while this is going on, and we're going to refer to this spike here, is to do with temperatures. Now, I'm going to show you in a moment how the CPU suddenly hit this rather extraordinary CPU temperature here on the right hand side of the screen. But for now, we can look at during these 4K playbacks, the CPU has been largely untroubled. We'll come out of that there, minimize that down. If we go now and repeat the process we've just done, but this time wrap things up even further. So this time, while duplicating that tab, we're now going to play the 400 megabits per second file in 3 different instances. This is the biggest file I own outside of 8K, so let's see how this fares. So straight away, first playback is within the client application. Get that opened up, you can see converting there. We saw a slight pause there while we're flicking between windows. Again, next up, we're playing it in another tab, converted there, and finally 400 converted there. You can see that playing there. Well, we're flicking between all those windows. Go into Plex, there they all are using hardware transcoding. There is our CPU, a little bit of a bump, but another factor to talk about here is when my own laptop specifications become something of a problem, because now we're reaching a point where harnessing and doing all of this on a single system is becoming problematic. But still, nonetheless, this was still able to comfortably play those large files. But unfortunately, because these are 30 seconds long, it's very hard to have multiple instances playing at once. So why don't we go absolutely bananas? Now we're going to go, and as we check the temperatures there, nothing too much to worry about. Just going to refresh that just in case it's not caching the information appropriately. And while we get rid of that secondary tab that may have paused itself there in the background, let's find you. Where are you living? Oh no, you're still there in the background. Let's create ourselves even more duplicate instances at once to play these files and try our best to have them all lined up on screen so we can see them all simultaneously. I'm just going to take a moment to lay this out. Okay, so now we're going to go for 7 simultaneous instances, and either the NAS, my laptop, or my face is going to blow up. So let's go. Playing for that one there. Next up, we're playing again the 400 megabit file there, and going down here, we're going to go for the 400, and one by one, all of these tabs are now going to be running that most dense of these files. So I apologize in advance if my OBS is starting to flag during the course of all of these playbacks. All of these playing here in the background, we're seeing all of these multiple instances, all of which are using hardware transcoding, as you can see here on screen. I do believe right now we are going to start seeing limitations of where my internal recording is hitting something of a throttle point here. But once again, the CPU has only slightly raised its game while we're doing all of these conversions, while we're switching these down. Now again, if we were playing original quality, there would be even less of a problem. That would really then come down to a question of bandwidth, and even then you'd really have to be ramping things up quite significantly for what we've done here to be something of a problem. But returning to that subject here of the CPU, and you can see that temperature has gone up ever so slightly during the course of the test that we've just conducted. I do think now we have to talk about the one area of Plex performance on this Jonsbo i9 build, which, although rather churlish to bring up, is something I think we need to discuss. Now, it's worth noting that when I'm talking about temperatures on this system, I'm talking about the CPU temperature. Right here, while we're converting a 60 megabits per second 4K UHD file here, you can see that right now, though we're using hardware transcoding and we look at the temperature, there isn't much to be concerned with there. That's because this CPU can handle this kind of thing. And that temperature there, the CPU and the temperature it garners can be, mitigated by the utilization of certain heat sinks and CPU coolers, thanks to the Jonsbo N3 having a larger area of space with which to use larger fan-assisted coolers, and the rear of the case having 2 rear-mounted fans that are drawing even more air, and even then there is space and screw holes to attach further rear fans here on the rear of that case. I believe 80mm fans times 2. It's worth highlighting that the minute you do stuff where the CPU itself becomes a throttle, such as some 8K files, that temperature will spike. Now, a great example of this when we look at 8K is even the very first file that I tend to play. Immediately it will convert. I think you'll find in the majority of cases even on an i9 like this, an 8K file is going to immediately go into conversions. It's just too heavy going, and it introduces new compression and codecs, a lot of the V series compressions as well, that become problematic when it comes to playback. So when we're looking at this file here, we can see that transcoding is happening, but whether we can use hardware transcoding, because of the complexity and the new compressions that are coming out, and indeed formats that are being played, you can't be completely reliant on hardware transcoding anymore. And as you can see, for the first time in our video, CPU utilization, because now things have switched almost by force towards software transcoding at the 8K level, the result is that not only is CPU and indeed memory utilization going absolutely bananas, but this is where that enormous spike that we talked about just now occurs when it comes to the temperature of that. Now, again, we could add water cooling, we could have a bunch more fans, we could have a CPU fan assisted cooler going up to the ceiling, but all of that counts for nothing if the CPU itself has just got no means to handle this much processing at all times, and it's being consistently throttled but also inefficiently managing. So this is a very, very valuable point for those that are looking at this build for future proofing, because as smarter client devices arrive, because if we look at my utilization here for both my graphics card, for my CPU utilization there, splitting between a lot of the different tools that are drawing a lot of this power, and OBS not listed on there is in itself already drawing on that. There is, in the future, you're going to see a greater increase of devices arriving on the scene with native 8K compatibility, as well as more compressions and file formats being supported in Plex for 8K. The result is that even though right now this Erying i9 build in the Jonsbo N2 doesn't seem to be 8K accessible, it is the surrounding environment, the TVs, the client devices, and Plex itself integrating more techniques and techniques of compression and codec support alongside those that gel better with the client devices within the transcoder and playback and agents, where things are going to improve. So right now, although I can test a couple more 8K files, and I will, let's go for Nightscape here. Again, nearly all of them are going to need conversions. It's worth highlighting that in the majority of cases, time and time again, you are going to come across CPU utilization going high, and you're going to have to be more reliant on your client device having 8K support. Otherwise, you're going to see, frankly, garbage level frame rates like you're seeing here on screen right now. Some 8K, as you can see, is going to play better than others, but still nonetheless, I can't recommend this build for an 8K Plex setup quite yet, but not because of the device and the Erying MoBo, but just because of the surrounding environment of 8K support on clients and software right now. That said, let's be realistic. We're talking about spending $599 on a system here, while we turn the sound down, that is able to play back a multitude of files of varying degrees of picture quality there at quite an astounding rate. Right there on screen, we are now playing everything from 4K to 8K, all on the same client system, all playing from the same NAS system, all of which utilizing transcoding there all the way along, and the whole time this system handling the lot. If you're looking at spending, as little as possible and get the very best you can to maximize your investment, it's very, very difficult to question this on what the merits of what you are getting in terms of bang for your buck and value for your money. And although we will be doing at least one more test on this, perhaps utilizing some more native playback, because I know I focus a great deal more on conversions and transcoding in this video than I have with organic playback, because frankly I'm taking it as read that the majority of it is playable. I'll say right now, for this kind of money, this system is an absolute stonewall of a classic, and I think most users who are looking at getting themselves a Plex media server, a bit of fun to DIY, this is a hard system to argue with. You just need to keep in mind that this system although it is going to be able to play back pretty much anything at the moment, if you were looking at this for 8K, you may need to upgrade the rest of your setup to really take advantage of it. And although I have had my reservations about the compact nature of the Jonsbo, I do still think it's worth highlighting once again that a lot of the reasons for this enormous degree of health spiking is less to do with the Jonsbo's compact nature and more to do with the simple fact that 8K is just not being handled efficiently right now, and the supported codecs, compression techniques and more are just not out there for both Plex and the integrated hardware to really take advantage of in the Plex Media Server client. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. We'll do one more video on this system very, very soon. And do stay tuned for some of those products I mentioned earlier on, where we're going to be looking at the U-Star combined build and that B-Link mini PC NAS build that we're going to be working on soon. Suggestions welcome below. But apart from that, have yourselves a fantastic weekend, and I'm going to have about 9 lem sips. I'll see you soon.